Mother. By definition, I have one. By experience, I have two. The woman who bore me and another who shaped me. Others may call her my stepmother, the woman who married my dad and assumed legal residence in my life. Me? Well, I have struggled with what to call her for a very long time. For nearly 30 years, I have resisted the instinct to call her mom. It's complicated. She didn't create me, not in the biological sense. Our relationship has, at times, been cutting and divisive. There is plenty of pain in our past. But who I am now, perseverant, deliberate, discerning, is because of her. Sass wouldn't slide, and difference was never an option. She challenged me to understand who I am and what I want. She molded me while also navigating the unforgiving position of a woman who was mother in action, but not in name. And even with all that, I couldn't get past the name that I would call her, Jane. I became Jane's stepdaughter just after my 7th birthday. In the wedding, I wore a purple Laura Ashley dress with pastel flowers and lace-trimmed sleeves. She decorated a room for me in the new house she bought with my dad. She hung pink curtains and bought me a rose-covered bedspread. I spent Tuesdays, Thursdays, and every other Sunday in the house with Jane and my dad. But on those days, Mom wasn't a word I used, because Jane wasn't. She wasn't my mom. That term remained reserved for the woman who woke me in the morning for school and cooked me macaroni and cheese at night. The woman who, at the time, seemed to fit that better title. For a time, it went on that way. But eventually my dad wanted to talk about the word that wasn't being said. I was in high school, and by this time living with my dad and Jane full-time in their southern Milwaukee suburb. It was Jane's birthday or Christmas, I don't really remember which. It was a gift-giving occasion, and the best present she could receive, my dad said, was for me to call her mom. I don't know if they had a conversation about it. I doubt that they did. The suggestion came from a personal place for my dad, seated by a need to have his wife and his daughter love each other as much as he loved them. Mom. I struggled against it. It's just a title, I said. It's meaningless. I can treat her with all the respect and teenage angst that the role commands without actually calling her by that name. And so I did. For years, we maintained that hazy "who are you really" relationship, with me dancing around my father's suggestive advice. But his words hung in my head. Eventually, the relationship with the woman I did call Mom deteriorated. At the same time, Jane became more constant. When I was in college in Missouri, she was the one who stocked my pantry with home-baked chocolate chip cookies and helped me with the rent. And during our Sunday night phone calls, she was the one who probed about internship applications and upcoming exams. When I landed my first job in Tennessee, 500 miles away from home, she was the person that I emulated. I worked not to be reduced to a soft woman in a testosterone-dominated sports writer profession. Jane was anything but soft. Through it, we persisted in an uncomfortable space, and still, when I said the word Mom, I was referring to somebody else. But then, I had children of my own. A pair of curious, exasperating, and silly boys who could strike my core with one simple word: Mama. It was a word that restored my energy after long days at work and gave me a reason to grind through when work wasn't satisfying enough. And there was something else. Those blonde-haired, blue-eyed boys called my stepmom not by her name, not Jane, but Grandma. It was so easy for them. They didn't have to think about the magnitude. But what did that mean for me? The artful avoidance that I was executing was becoming more complex. Funny, I think, because right after Jane and my dad got married, I adopted other titles with ease. To me, Jane's mom was always called Grandma. Her brother was my uncle, her nieces and nephews were my cousins, and yet Jane remained a woman with a first name. She was the exception. Except when I talked to my friends about her. Then it was, "My mom is calling, I have to run." And except when I referenced her to my brother, half-brother if you want to be technical about it, but I've never, ever called him that. It's always just been brother. So to him I would say, "What did you get Mom for her birthday?" And except when talking to everyone else about her. And not only except, but despite. Despite the fact that she, a bold, resolute, resilient woman who assumed the tremendous task of raising a child she didn't give birth to, made me the woman that I am today. It's funny the decisions you make at 7 or 17 and how unanchored they seem. I'm not a teenager anymore, but I'm still dealing with it. If she knew how much I was thinking about this, maybe we could talk about it. Maybe we are closer than I imagine. A few years ago, we reached another funny space where she started signing her emails not with her name, but simply with the word, me. It was her way, I know, of calling attention to the situation while moving herself into a different space. And this Christmas, as I stood in the greeting card aisle at Target, I made a very conscious decision. Instead of buying her a generic, titleless holiday card, or a humorous one, as I had done in the past, I picked out one that said, Mom. The gesture was momentous for me. I had no idea if it would resonate with her. It did. We were separated at the holiday this year, but she made a point of texting me, specifically thanking me, not for the gift that I had sent, but for the card. Mother, what does that word mean? Everything. And to me, she is all of it. Perhaps one day soon, I will say that to her face.